Suddenly a heavy snowfall descended. Merely an hour later, the zombies were on the verge of arriving. In my previous life, the four of us in the dormitory all met tragic ends. But with this rebirth, I vow to ensure that everyone survives. Those who want to live follow me. I looked at the countdown, my heart filled with a sense of urgency. There were still 60 minutes until the zombies arrived. I had never imagined that one day my school would turn into such a state. The lawn was littered with bloody debris, and dark red bloodstains from dragging were left on the asphalt road. Not far away, the excited dash roars of the zombies could be heard. I fled in all directions, but there was nowhere to escape. In the next second, an ugly and blood-stained face appeared in front of me, so close that I almost lost focus. Then, the zombie opened its stinking mouth and lunged straight for my head. In an instant I lost all consciousness. "Is it snowing?" A surprised female voice rang in my ear, waking me up in an instant. I opened my eyes and saw the familiar mosquito net and bedspread. I sat up and looked down. Beneath my feet was the all-too-familiar dormitory, and my three familiar roommates were all looking out of the window. "Gunyan, come down quickly. It's snowing." Lin Jiao called out to me excitedly. I stared at her blankly. Yesterday, I had witnessed with my own eyes her transformation from a normal person into a zombie with gray-green skin and scarlet eyes. And now she, Fangqin, and Jiang Xiaoyu were all alive. No one had painfully jumped off a building, and no one had been cornered and humiliated by those men. At this moment, the four of us were all safely in the dormitory. A surge of uncontrollable excitement suddenly welled up in my heart. How wonderful! Fortunately, all of this had just been a dream. Fangqin smiled and said, "I'm from the northeast. Snow is nothing new to me. Gunyan, how many times does it snow in your hometown in a year?" My mind went blank, and I mechanically replied, "More than 10 times. These 4 words, and the question Fangqin had just asked, were exactly the same as before I was bitten to death by the zombies in my previous life. Could it be that I have really been reborn? I picked up the mobile phone beside my pillow and glanced at the time. 8:02 p.m. on November 22nd. 10 minutes later, the school would officially announce the sealing of the dormitory building in the group. By then, the gate would be quickly locked, and we would no longer be able to get out. An hour later, the first zombie would appear on campus. If everything was the same as in my previous life, then now, Jiang Xiaoyu should be about to speak. I looked at her, and sure enough, Jiang Xiaoyu said in a low voice, "The small student union group said that the school is going to seal the building." Looking at Lin Jiao, who hadn't mutated Fangqin, who hadn't been forced to jump off a building by the zombie hordes and the extreme cold, and Xiaoyu, who hadn't been humiliated by the security guards, and touching my neck, which had been torn open by the zombies' bite in the end, and still, I was certain that this was not a dream, but a chance at a new life given to me by heaven. I secretly swore that I would never waste this opportunity to survive against the odds. I must survive this apocalypse. I quickly jumped out of bed, my mind racing as I thought about how to quickly convince everyone to flee this dangerous place. Moreover, I only had 10 minutes. The 3 of them were still chatting idly. Is this virus a zombie virus? If there really are zombies, I want someone like Long Outyin, hee. I'm Dracula, a vampire. Zombies my foot. At this time, the snow grains outside the window became even finer in just a few minutes. I knew that soon, the snowflakes would turn into large goose-down-like flakes. At 8:05 p.m., there were still 7 minutes until the school made the announcement. I stared intently at my roommates in front of me, my tone firm and, "Pack your things. We're leaving now." The 3 of them looked at each other in dismay, wearing puzzled expressions. Time was pressing. The rumors of the doomsday blizzard and zombies were definitely not something that a normal person could easily understand. At this critical moment, lies often worked better than the truth. I said to them in a low voice, "Just now, my family told me some inside information. Everyone on our floor will be taken away. See the heavy snow outside? In the next few days, the temperature will drop below 0. I don't want to be taken in and freeze." Fangqin had always been a cautious person. She said worriedly, "Now they're saying the building will be sealed. Won't you be breaking school rules if you run out?" I said with absolute firmness in my tone. "Who said the building will be sealed? Before the official announcement, you're all free." Lin Jiao was a local rich second generation. She didn't care about these minor violations at all. She said nonchalantly, "Let's go. I don't want to freeze. It's not convenient to take a bath there. Don't worry. As long as I'm okay, you'll definitely be okay too." Seeing that the 2 mainstays in the dormitory were so determined, Fangqin and Jiang Xiaoyu nodded in agreement. I quickly said, "Then pack quickly. The school should be doing a final check for typos in the announcement now, so we have to leave here completely within 5 minutes." Once the announcement is made, the dormitory auntie's big iron chain will lock the gate. Okay. At 8:06 p.m., there were still 6 minutes until the school made the announcement. I opened the timer on my mobile phone, set a 5-minute countdown, and placed it in the most conspicuous position on the table. I proposed 3 principles. Don't bring any useless and cumbersome things like cosmetics, skincare products, and curling irons. Wear as many layers of clothes as you can. Carrying too much luggage when going out is too conspicuous. Wearing all your clothes on your body is the safest. Bring all the charging devices for electronic products, and don't forget keys and documents. Everyone stared at the time, and started packing like crazy. With 3.4 seconds left, we were all packed. Each of us was wrapped in 4 or 5 layers of coats. Taking advantage of the fact that there was no one in the corridor, and everyone's attention was still on Messi, we quickly rushed downstairs. At 8:12 p.m., the 4 of us appeared at the first floor with our heads down. The dormitory auntie looked up and glanced at us, but paid no attention. We quickly pushed open the dormitory door, and left the dormitory building. We let out a long sigh of relief, and the tension and fear in our hearts eased a little. However, before we could reach the first intersection, everyone's mobile phones rang simultaneously. A group announcement was made in the class group. Dear teachers and students, uncertain situations have occurred on campus today. In line with the principle of putting everyone's life safety and physical health first, and to prevent the further spread of potential hazards, it has been decided to implement temporary control of each dormitory building. From the time this message is issued, students in each dormitory building are only allowed to enter and not exit. Once the latest requirements are determined, they will be notified immediately. The dormitory building was sealed. In my previous life, we were not only slow-witted, but also overly trusting of others. The sudden snowfall in Xiamen, a place with coconut groves and beaches, didn't even draw our attention. We had no sense of risk at all. Moreover, we obediently stayed sealed in the dormitory building. Supplies were only distributed for 2 days, and then that wretched dormitory supervisor ran away with the remaining food and water. Later, there was a cut in water and electricity supply. More than half of the people starved and froze to death in the dormitory. Some people even jumped out of the building to escape, breaking their legs directly, and then being devoured by zombies. This time, having escaped from the dormitory before it was sealed, we have already gained the initiative. Gunyan, where are we going? The Hanting Hotel at the school gate. Lin Jiao exhaled a white mist as she spoke. To the laboratory. Lin Jiao was speechless. Don't tell me the laboratory you mentioned is the one for the agricultural facilities course? Why not go to a hotel? I nodded. You have the key to the laboratory, so we can get in. The Hanting Hotel will also be sealed, and we won't be able to go there. Well, there's no need to go to the laboratory, right? No, the laboratory is the most suitable place. In my previous life, I discovered a characteristic of zombies. They tend to be more active on cloudy and dark days than on sunny days. So I heard that zombies fear ultraviolet rays. We are all engineering students, majoring in agricultural machinery automation. One of our elective courses is modern agronomic facilities. Usually, we not only study temperature control technology in a greenhouse environment, but also research hydroponics. There are 6 hydroponic racks in the agronomic facilities laboratory. Each rack has 5 layers, and each layer is equipped with 4 ultraviolet cultivation tubes for growing vegetables. That is to say, there are a full 120 ultraviolet tubes in the laboratory. More importantly, because the hydroponic racks need to carry out a 24-hour nutrient solution circulation, the water pump must be continuously powered. So the water and electricity supply system in the laboratory is completely independent. The door of the agricultural facilities laboratory is a thick iron door that can only be opened with a key. With water, electricity, and ultraviolet lights, it's warm and not easy to be broken into from the outside. As long as we also have enough food and cold-proof equipment, the laboratory can definitely become our safe zone. Lin Jiao rolled her eyes. Gunyan, are you crazy? Even if I'm the course representative, we can't act recklessly. Students are not allowed to enter or exit the laboratory when there are no classes. Have you forgotten? I thought you were going to suggest we go out and stay in a hotel together. Why do you insist on going to the laboratory? It was 8:15 p.m., and there were still 47 minutes until the zombie outbreak. I'll explain to Professor Jiang later. He said he wants to train me to be his graduate student. I'm sure he won't do anything to me. If something goes wrong, you can say I stole your key. 3 seconds later, Lin Jiao sighed. Damn it, I'll listen to you. You'll have to do my final assignment for this course. Leave it to me. If we can survive to do the assignment, I'd be willing to do your assignments for a lifetime. I continued walking forward. Where are you going? The laboratory building is over there. I didn't stop walking and said casually, we're going shopping first. We can't eat experimental teaching aids in there, can we? All right. Then I deliberately led them towards the staff quarters, because there was a Sanyao station there. We could climb over the fence by stepping on the express boxes. It was 8:19 p.m., and there were still 43 minutes until the zombie outbreak. When we arrived at the Sanyao station, we found that the old lady who usually picked up discarded cardboard boxes from the nearby residential buildings wasn't there today. and the courier guy was also nowhere to be seen. Presumably, it was too cold for anyone to go out, which was convenient for us. Not only did we climb over, but we also stuffed a flatbed cart through the gap in the fence. Then we ran wildly to the new Huadu supermarket at the school gate. The supermarket usually mainly served the students of our school, so there were very few people in the supermarket today. The four of us stood the flatbed cart at the entrance and rushed directly to the shelves. I looked at the time. 15 minutes. Take as much as you can. Don't take snacks that take up a lot of space, those with a short shelf life, those with a strong smell, or those that make a lot of noise when eaten. Take more carbohydrates and proteins, less fat, as well as drinking water, sealed garbage bags, toilet paper, sanitary napkins. Nothing else is needed. I'll pay today. Don't be shy. There was still 8,000 yuan of the national scholarship that had just been issued in my card, plus my previous part-time salary from the milk tea shop. Surely it was enough to pay the bill. After the end of the world came, money was just waste paper and a meaningless string of numbers. Surviving one more day was the most important thing. Although everyone didn't understand my strange requests, the last sentence that I would pay silenced them. Among carbohydrates, we only took compressed biscuits because other things were too hard to bite in a low-temperature environment. For proteins, we took dried cheese, beef jerky, canned luncheon meat, and other foods with a long shelf life and not easy to spoil. We also took 2 boxes of daily nuts, 10 buckets of drinking water, 5 rolls of garbage bags, 2 large packs of toilet paper, and a large pack of sanitary napkins. Finally, I also took a box of ziduaduo, which was their 3 favorite. Maybe it would be a bit of sweetness in our despair. At 8:34 p.m., our flatbed cart was piled up with a mountain of food, and we finally felt a bit more confident. Then we went to a nearby outdoor supplies store. Big goose down, like snowflakes had already started to fall outside. The clothes we were wearing could only barely keep us warm now. Without my further explanation, they also knew it was time to buy some cold-proof supplies. 10 sets of cold-proof suits, 4 warm sleeping bags, 4 climbing hats, 4 down quilts, 4 rechargeable heaters that could heat for 10 hours when fully charged. After getting the cold-proof supplies ready, I casually picked up 5 pieces of light, blocking canvas, and a telescope. Lin Jiao asked curiously, "What are you going to do with this?" "Go camping." I said, "It's better to be prepared." As I looked at the folding knife next to me and picked it up to examine it. This time, it was Jiang Xiaoyu's turn to be curious. "Gunyan, aren't you buying too much?" I half joked. "Xiaoyu in the Resident Evil you play, does anyone use this to fight zombies?" Jiang Xiaoyu was a gaming enthusiast. She usually held a Switch in the dormitory, and would occasionally complain that the 3 of us didn't play games at all in this day and age. "Hey, you've asked the right person. Even if you shoot a zombie in the head with a gun, it can still crawl. What you have in your hand is basically a guaranteed 0-4-1 when fighting zombies." Jiang Xiaoyu casually scanned the store. "That one is more useful." I looked over, and saw it was a military shovel. I nodded, rushed to the direction she pointed at, picked up 4 multifunctional military shovels, and stuffed 4 folding knives into the shopping basket together. "Damn, you're really buying them? Are you going to cosplay Alice because you're bored with life?" I didn't answer, and put a hand-cranked generator and a battery into the shopping cart. Although solar panels were useful, they were too conspicuous and would expose our location. So this kind of generator was more suitable for us. At 8:37 p.m., while they were moving the goods, I slipped to the nearby pharmacy. None of the 4 of us had underlying diseases, so we didn't need special medications. The vegetables in the laboratory were enough for our vitamin C intake, so we could save the effervescent tablets. So what I needed to buy were antibiotics, trauma-related drugs, cold and fever-reducing drugs, as well as stomach medications, anti-allergy drugs, and first aid supplies. When I reported to the pharmacist, amoxicillin capsules, roxithromycin capsules, clindamycin gel, ofloxacin gel, the female pharmacist frowned. "Are you injured?" I smiled innocently. "Oh no, the school infirmary is temporarily replenishing some medications." Only then was she reassured. After real name registration, she went to pick up the goods. "Remember to do 3 nucleic acid tests in 3 days when you go back. Here you are." I continued to express my gratitude. "Thank you." When we returned to the Cainiao station, we didn't rush directly to the laboratory building. Instead, we picked up several large cardboard boxes from the ground. We chose the ones with the JD.com logo on them, put all the items we had just purchased into the boxes, sealed them with transparent tape, and quickly pushed them towards the laboratory building. By now, it was 8:41 p.m., and there were still 21 minutes until the zombie outbreak. We had to rush back to the laboratory and settle down within 20 minutes. And ahead, I had thought there was only one difficulty left for us to solve, but the result was unexpected. Now the snow outside was so heavy that it was almost impossible to see the road. The snowflakes were blown onto our faces by the wind, and the visibility dropped sharply. Not far ahead, a student appeared. He seemed to have slipped accidentally and fallen to the ground. A few minutes later, he got up. His movements were strangely stiff, and his walking was somehow inconsistent. I was very familiar with this posture. It turned out that the mutation had already started at this time. It was 20 minutes earlier. No, we had to speed up. This was the only way for us to get to the laboratory. If we walked further, we would easily encounter zombies. Fortunately, it was moving in the same direction as us, so I carefully and slowly followed it from behind. Hey, are those people in front spraining their ankles? Why are they walking so limpingly? Shoo. I urgently covered Fang Qin's mouth and whispered a warning in her ear. The zombie suddenly stopped and turned its neck 180 degrees backward, as if looking for the source of the sound. It slowly walked towards us along the sound. Lin Jiao and Jiang Xiaoyu gasped sharply. No living person could turn their head at that angle. The two of them looked at me in unison, their eyes wide open, full of horror. Hold your breath, don't make a sound, and stand still. After whispering these 3 sentences, I immediately held my breath and stood still like a sculpture. Zombies distinguish food by hearing and smell. Their eyesight is not very good, especially in a snowstorm. They can't see us. As long as we don't make a sound or breathe, we can avoid being discovered. It got closer and closer to us. When it was only 1 step away, I could even see its rotting face, oozing with pus and blood. Fortunately, I was holding my breath and didn't smell the suffocating stench. Otherwise, someone among us would definitely not be able to control themselves and vomit. The zombies brushed past us one by one. Fang Qin was so frightened that she was almost crying. Most of her body weight was on my right arm. If I let go, she would definitely sit on the ground with weak legs now. At this time, the zombies were moving very slowly. We were all purple in the face from holding our breath, before they moved a little further away from us. At that moment, none of us dared to suddenly take a big breath. We only dared to exhale slightly. We didn't dare to delay any longer, and quickly pushed the flatbed cart and galloped on the road. Finally, we reached the downstairs of the laboratory building. The security guard stopped us. He was holding an anti-riot baton and pointing at the 4 of us. Where are you going? What are all these things? The dormitory building has been sealed. What are you doing here? Go back quickly. In the past, the security guard would have us register, call the teacher to verify, and then let us through. But the security guards in the past year had been more fierce than the principal. But now was not the time to confront him head-on. There were still zombies wandering on campus. The top priority was to enter the laboratory in the quickest way. Since we had just witnessed the zombies with our own eyes, the 3 of them no longer had any doubts about my actions. Our cooperation reached its peak instantly. According to the plan, Fang Qin, who looked the most pitiful, showed weakness first. These are the things we need for next week's experiment. The instructor asked us to put them in the laboratory. Security guard, please open the door for us. The security guard stared at the piles of JD.com boxes on our flatbed cart, and still didn't believe us. Yes, and didn't let us through. Lin Jiao saw the opportunity, and quickly picked up the phone, and put it to her ear, starting to curse. Can you be more responsible? Do you believe I'll complain to JD.com about you? Damn it, you're cold, but I'm not. Delivering goods without reaching the designated location. Do you want us girls to carry these heavy experimental instruments one by one? Jiang Xiaoyu and I echoed, complain. We must complain. Seeing this, the security guard's concerns were much reduced. He asked for our student ID cards and temporarily withheld them, then waved his hand and let us in. After successfully entering the laboratory building, we stood in a row and simultaneously let out a sigh of relief. At 9 p.m. sharp, we finally arrived at the laboratory with all the supplies. After locking the door securely, we sat on the stools, gasping for breath, still in a state of lingering fear. Jiang Xiaoyu sent several screenshots in the dormitory group, which were the Weibo trending search interface. A man in Xuanzhou went crazy and bit people on the road. The live broadcast of the Argentina-Saudi Arabia match in the Qatar World Cup was interrupted. Even the mattress incident that had been on the trending search for a day was pushed down. I got up and walked to the window, took out the telescope, and observed the situation outside. The snow outside had become so heavy that it had dyed the ground white. The street lamp downstairs flickered a few times, and then went out. The campus was plunged into a strange darkness. The doomsday had begun. 3. We called our respective parents. Using the same way I had deceived them, we also convinced our parents to stock up on supplies. Then we started to tidy up everything in the laboratory. If nothing unexpected happened, the barreled water would not be needed for the time being. We stacked the 10 barrels of mineral water in the southeast corner of the laboratory, away from the window, to avoid freezing when the temperature dropped sharply. The biscuits, dried cheese, beef jerky, and canned luncheon meat were sorted according to their shelf lives and placed in the northeast corner. When eating, we would prioritize the ones with the shortest shelf lives to ensure an adequate supply of fresh food. The garbage bags were placed near the window. The low temperature could prevent the garbage from spoiling easily and keep the smell away from the corridor. Next to the food was the sleeping area. 3 warm sleeping bags and down quilts were placed together, and the other one was placed about 1 meter away from the door. We needed to take turns keeping watch at night. No one could guarantee that it was absolutely safe outside. Looking at the neatly arranged supplies, I felt much more at ease. My parents also sent messages, saying that they had made preparations. So far, everything was going smoothly. For the rest, I could only leave it to fate. Just as I was laying a down quilt at the door, Lin Jiao finally couldn't hold back. Did you already know that there would be zombies on campus? I took a deep breath and nodded. Then, how many will there be? Can the school control the development of the situation? My long silence for half a minute made them understand the situation. Let's continue tidying up, Lin Jiao said. Immediately, everyone started to set up defenses again. The cold-proof suits were placed on the down quilts to better keep warm. We made the light-blocking canvas into curtains and fixed them on the windows, which could not only block the wind, but also prevent people outside from noticing the situation inside. Each of us had a folding knife in our pockets. The military shovels were placed against the wall within our reach. We turned the laboratory into a fortress-like place. Within these 4 hours, the screams and roars outside the window never stopped. Just separated by a window, on one side was a greenhouse with sufficient supplies, and on the other side was a cold purgatory. I stood by the window with a telescope, opening a small slit in the curtain. 6 students ran out from the library opposite and galloped on the asphalt road. The mutated zombies chased them desperately. Whenever they caught a living person, they would stop and swarm to devour. 1 zombie pounced on the face and gnawed at the facial features. 3 concentrated on the abdomen, pulling out the intestines, and 6 or 7 were biting on the arms, thighs, and calves respectively. One of the zombies biting the calf, feeling that it was difficult to bite the calf of the person lying flat, directly broke the leg at the knee of the human body, and held it in its hand to chew, chewing vigorously. At that time, the person on the ground still had a breath left and let out a heart-rending howl. More than a dozen zombies were sharing one person, but there were at least 100 zombies on campus. The zombies that didn't get a share of the flesh were still constantly looking for living people. The remaining 5 students had fear written all over their faces. They shouted and ran in a panic but attracted more zombies. The next second, one by one they were knocked down. At 1 a.m. in the middle of the night, it finally became quiet outside. The temperature gauge on the wall showed that it had dropped to 0 degrees. It had only taken 1 hour to drop from 25 degrees to 0 degrees, and it was still dropping continuously. Lin Jiao handed out down jackets and cold-proof suits to everyone. Fang Qin distributed Hongta beef, cans with pan milk, flavored small breads to each of us according to the amount. The 4 of us girls huddled together and ate this luxurious meal in the apocalypse. Lin Jiao said, "Will the zombies be eliminated?" I shook my head and told the truth. I died earlier than those things, so I don't know what happened later. Jiang Xiaoyu asked. Nian, then tell us in detail the information you have. Since we were eaten by zombies last time, this time I have to bite them back somehow. Then, the 3 of them opened their memo apps and started to record my words. This is an apocalypse. The extremely cold weather reaching -50 degrees Celsius has enhanced the activity of the virus, leading to the outbreak of zombies. The characteristic of this wave of zombies is that they have developed motor nerves. Their running speed and strength are higher than those of humans, and their hearing and sense of smell are excellent, but their eyesight is poor. Also, they are afraid of ultraviolet rays. Lin Jiao quickly reacted and looked at the whole row of hydroponic racks behind. So that's why you chose to bring us to the laboratory, because there are enough ultraviolet tubes here. I nodded. In addition to the tubes, there is also independent water and electricity here. The hydroponic racks can be used to grow vegetables. If we plant the large leaf arugula that Professor Jiang mentioned in class, it only takes 20 days from soaking the seeds to maturity. Jiang Xiaoyu felt relieved. So there will be a continuous supply of vegetables to eat. We forced ourselves not to look outside, and quickly devoted ourselves wholeheartedly to the great cause of growing vegetables in the laboratory. Heated in a 40-degree water bath for 2 hours. Spread the gauze on the seed-raising tray. Remember to spray some water with the spray bottle. Fill the lower layer of the seed-raising tray with water. Yes, don't exceed that scale line. Is the temperature set properly in the incubator? It needs to be kept at a constant temperature of 30 degrees for germination. Jiang Xiaoyu picked up 3 plastic bottles and called me. Nian, how do we prepare the nutrient solution? I can't tell these 3 apart. The red one is solution A, the blue one is solution B, and the yellow one is solution C. Prepare the 3 original solutions A, B, and C in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 1. After preparing, remember to measure the EC value with a capacitive pen. A value between 1000 and 1200 is the most suitable. After more than 3 hours of busy work, it was approaching 5 a.m. The 4 of us even sweated on our foreheads, and a lot of the cold air in our bodies was forced out. We sat together and turned on our phones to check the news from the outside world. An unknown virus has broken out in many countries around the world, causing human mutations. The number of deaths and injuries has not been counted yet. The stock market plummeted. Apple dropped below $50, and the A-share market dropped below the 2,000-point mark. Matai led the decline. Investment gold bars and mini banks have been snapped up. Long queues formed at gas stations across the country. Bloodshed occurred due to queue jumping for oil. Supermarkets such as Yonghui and Walmart have been emptied. Municipal governments across the country are reminding everyone not to rush to buy vegetables, as the supply is very sufficient. The attention on SpaceX has skyrocketed. Bill Gates called Elon Musk to buy the Starship. The class counselor also sent a new message in the class group. Dear classmates, there may be some emergency situations on campus currently. To ensure everyone's personal safety, the school has decided to temporarily close and supervise each dormitory building. The necessary survival supplies have been retrieved by the dormitory administrators and will be distributed to everyone on time every day. Please don't panic, and more importantly, don't spread false information on the internet to cause public panic. The classmates all went online. The outside world was in chaos, and everyone was trying to find a way to survive. But the class counselor described it so lightly, a few students couldn't help but retort. People are already dead. Who the hell is spreading false information? The whole world is running for their lives, but you are sealing us up? Teacher Yang, If you dare to take a stroll on the playground, I will believe you. At this time, the class cadres began to soothe the students' emotions in the group. Whatever decisions the school makes are for everyone's safety. As class cadres, we should set an example and never cause trouble for the school and teachers. Yes, everyone should supervise each other in the dormitory, and not spread some alarming news. The school must have its own considerations. Sealing the building is definitely the safest way at the moment. Teachers on the front line have worked hard. The scholarships and various selections were in the hands of these people. So many students fell silent. Only a few boys shouted a few idiots. But no one dared to take the lead in breaking through the dormitory blockade to Tdwa supplies. The classmates were as naive as I was in my previous life. They neither deeply understood why Americans bought guns first when the virus raged last time, nor did they understand what it meant by losing humanity. You lose a lot. Losing animality, you lose everything. Now it had reached a time when animality could not be lost. I looked at the class counselor's WeChat profile picture and said, supplies were only distributed for 2 days. Later, tens of thousands of students in the 32 dormitory buildings were left unattended. The three of them exclaimed, "What?" Fang Qin tentatively asked, "Should we tell the classmates the news?" I looked at Fang Qin without speaking. Jiang Xiaoyu answered before me, "Absolutely not. Fang Qin, trust me. All zombie escape games have taught me one thing. Saints don't live long. If you tell them, there is a risk of exposing ourselves. As long as there is a fifth person other than the four of us who knows that we are hiding here with so many supplies, they will swallow us up faster than zombies." After hearing this, Fang Qin looked at me, and then at Lin Jiao. "Xiaoyu, how could you say such cold-blooded words?" Lin Jiao said, "I'm on Xiaoyu's side. I'm not interested in being Chengxian." Fang Qin looked at me again, seeking my opinion. I didn't refute Fang Qin, but I told her a fact. The supplies were sufficient for 2 days, but after noon on the second day, everyone started to go hungry. Because that female dormitory supervisor in charge of distributing supplies took all the supplies and ran away. Fang Qin's eyes widened in disbelief. At this moment, a crack appeared in her worldview. The four of us took turns keeping watch at night, arranged in ascending order of student numbers. Lin Jiao, me, Fang Qin, Jiang Xiaoyu. Finally, my turn to keep watch was over. My eyelids were so sleepy that they were fighting. As soon as I lay down on the ground, I fell asleep. In the middle of my sleep, I was woken up by a huge buzzing sound, as if someone had put a mobile phone on vibration mode and stuffed it next to my ear. I opened my eyes, and the room was brightly lit. The overwhelming purple light almost blinded my eyes. Damn it, what the hell is making such a loud noise? Lin Jiao cursed as she was woken up, followed by Jiang Xiaoyu. Then the three of us saw Fang Qin, who was supposed to be on night watch at the door, weakly raising her hand behind that row of hydroponic racks. Sorry, I just wanted to see if they worked. I pressed the switch, and then, she had pressed the switch of the main controller, causing the water pumps of the 6 hydroponic racks to operate simultaneously. The buzzing sound resounded throughout the entire laboratory, and the noise made my scalp tingle. I quickly realized that if this continued, a large number of zombies would soon be attracted by the noise, and now it was already dark outside. If there were survivors who noticed the light source coming from the laboratory window, they would realize that there were living people in the laboratory. I quickly got up and ran to the main controller, and turned off that row of hydroponic racks. Can't you use your brain? What if you attract zombies? Before I could speak, Lin Jiao's hot temper had already flared up. Fang Qin was so scolded by her that her face turned bright red. Sorry, I didn't think. I was filled with unease. If the noise of the water pumps was this loud, then we couldn't transplant the seedlings as we had expected. If we didn't turn on the water pumps, then after more than 12 hours without nutrient solution circulation, the roots of some fragile seedlings would start to rot and wither, let alone grow edible vegetables. Was there any way to reduce the noise generated by the water pump circulation? I could only turn to Baidu on my phone for help and search for noise-reducing materials. Sound-absorbing cotton, wool cotton, and soundproof boards could only be bought at building materials markets. I entered the keywords, adding the name of our school after noise-reducing materials, hoping that big data would push me the nearest shops on the map. Only a few results were shown, but among them was a news article, an interview with our school's environmental science laboratory, about a new type of polymer composite sound, absorbing cotton more than half a month ago. Translation and polished version asterisk. The labyrinthine world of polymers and elastomers eludes my comprehension. Yet one revelation anchors my resolve. The environmental science laboratory resides directly beneath us on the second floor of this research building. Observe this, I murmur, disseminating the news article to our quartet's group chat. Jiang Xiaoyu's reply blinks hesitantly. Significance? Surely experimental research now would be belated. Lin Jiao wraps her knuckles against Xiaoyu's temple. Imbecile. Their lab lies a staircase away. A lockpick's twist, and its soundproofing trove becomes ours. Fang Qin swallows audibly, venturing out. What if the infected? My gaze silences her. You and Xiaoyu guard our provisions. Jiao and I descend. Lin Jiao arches an eyebrow. Presumptuous of my compliance? Need we debate when you alone possess lockcraft? Wordlessly, she selects 2 tactical shovels, flinging one toward me. The blade whistles through air as she test swings hers. Remarkably balanced, she remarks. Decapitation capable, I'd wager. Expedition now. Swift return. Xiaoyu interjects. But their diurnal lethargy, why not daylight? Speculate where they roost under sun. Indoors. Dawn chasers, these hordes. Sunrise drives them outward unless prey beckons. Daylight's deceptive calm hides ambush possibilities. We creak open the lab door. The corridor exhales glacial darkness, its breath snatching at my scarf. Accursed cold. Advance swiftly. Gripping elbows, we descend stairs where shadows amplify dread. Putrefaction saturates the second floor. Blood smears the landing. Peril looms, yet retreat forfeits survival. The second floor abyss mirrors third-level architecture. 6 laboratories flanking north-south axes, flanked by restrooms. Our phone lights hover like fireflies as we drift northward. 201, Energy Dynamics. 202, Automotive Engineering. Human-machine intelligence. Restrooms loom ahead. A rustle halts us. My fingers clamp Lin Jiao's sleeve. The scrape of weight dragging across Tao crescendos. No necrotic stench yet. We freeze. A blood-crusted hand snakes from restroom shadows, seizing Jiao's ankle. Salvation. Cold consumes. A cyanotic face emerges, fissured wrists glittering with frozen hematoma. Human. Jiao's whisper hangs. Decision crystallized long before this moment. I wrench her free, sprinting toward 206, Environmental Sciences. Lin Jiao's screwdriver dances. Half a minute, and the lock surrenders. We bundle soundproofing matrices, denser than anticipated, securing them with hemp ropes. Circumnavigate that restroom. I warn as we retreat. Frost's grasp claims her by now. Jiao asserts, though unease lingers. Mechanical pleas haunt our passage. Salvation. Cold. We quicken pace, only to confront sinister crimson footprints ascending freshly bloodied stairs. Palms slick on shovel grips we ascend. The third-floor corridor breathes malice. A dragging rhythm approaches. A half-footed revenant materializes, frost-crusted visage grazing my cheek. Paralysis grips us until it shuffles past. We crash into our sanctuary, barricading the door. Fang Qin's inquiry dies at my gesture. Infected abroad, I breathe. Dawn approaches. At first light insulation. 8 a.m. unveils a cryogenic campus. Post-apocalyptic dawn 2. Societal collapse manifests through smartphone screens. Neighbors slaughtered over instant noodles. First-floor dwellers imprisoned by drapery. By moonrise, seedlings defy death. Tender green spears piercing gauze. Transplanting 1,050 sprouts into hydroponic grids becomes sacred ritual. Midnight finds us sipping syrupy coconut nectar. Its saccharin balm soothing frayed nerves. November 24th, 10:23 a.m. Thawing thermometers read 12 degrees Celsius. Beyond frosted panes, shambling legions test thawing reflexes. Xiaoyu notes their quickening. Lin Jiao hypothesizes thermal kinetics. A skitter at the door freezes us mid-motion. For gazes lock on the threshold where destiny scratches. 6. Help! Help! Then with a click there was the sound of a key being inserted and turned in the door lock. And the door was opened. Because of the military shovel placed against the door last night, only a small crack was created, revealing half of a man's pale face. Mr. Yang. When we clearly saw the man's face, the 4 of us almost exclaimed simultaneously. Why was the class counselor, Yang Yuan, here? How could he open the door of the laboratory? There were clearly only 2 keys to the laboratory. One was with us, and the other was with Professor Jiang, who taught us the agronomic facilities course. Before we could react, 2 or 3 more heads squeezed out from behind him. One of them was the monitor of our class, and also Mr. Yang's nephew. Lin Jiao, Gunyan. Open the door for us quickly. There are zombies chasing us. The monitor shouted hoarsely. The footsteps of the zombies outside were getting closer and closer. Lin Jiao and I exchanged a glance. Hearing our names, Counselor Yang Yuan was overjoyed. I remember. You're all students of agricultural machinery, right? Quick, open the door for the teacher. There were more than 600 students in our department. Yang Yuan could only remember those class cadres who often went to his office. It was quite normal that he didn't recognize us. Perhaps it was the consecutive days of having enough to eat and drink that made us lose our vigilance towards outsiders in the apocalypse. We hesitated for a moment, but in that moment of hesitation, Yang Yuan reached his arm through the crack in the door and knocked away our military shovel. The moment the door was opened, 5 people rushed in quickly. Bang! They closed the door behind them, Gurjia the closely chasing zombies outside. After entering the door, the few people slumped to the ground, gasping for breath. The monitor Jiang Shui recovered first. He picked up the thermos cup we placed beside and poured a cup of warm water for Yang Yuan. Mr. Yang, have some water. A familiar-looking girl next to him, who seemed to be the league secretary of Class 1 of Engineering Management, eyed the food we placed in the corner. She walked over, rummaged through it a few times, picked up a bag of Pan small bread, tore open the packaging bag, and handed it to Yang Yuan. Teacher, you must be hungry too. Have something to eat. Yang Yuan wasn't polite. He took it and chewed a few mouthfuls. Presumably, he remembered that there were still several students behind him. He wiped his mouth. Not having eaten for a day, everyone must be hungry, right? Have some food. Since the counselor had spoken, none of these students were polite. They rushed towards the place where we put the food in a whoosh, picking and choosing canned meat and bread. Lin Jiao frowned. Damn it, are they here to have a buffet in our room? Fang Qin didn't dare to speak loudly. Probably they're starving. But even if they were extremely hungry, they should have at least said thank you or sorry to us. Looking at the 5 people feasting in front of us, I had a bad premonition in my heart. After eating the bread and drinking the water, Yang Yuan finally raised his head and carefully looked around the things in the room. Finally, his gaze fixed on us. Who allowed you to enter the laboratory casually? Don't you know that the school has clearly stipulated that students are not allowed to enter or leave at will during non-class hours? When he was looking around the room just now, I was also sizing him up. I didn't miss the fact that when he saw the supplies we had stockpiled, his eyes almost lit up. Mr. Yang, if according to the school regulations, neither you nor Jiang Shuai and the others should be able to come in, only Professor Jiang should be able to enter this room. I retorted. I felt that when I mentioned Professor Jiang, Yang Yuan's expression became unnatural. Looking at the blood on the key in Yang Yuan's hand and his flustered look, I could probably guess the outcome of Professor Jiang. Cough. It was your Professor Jiang who gave me the key and asked me to bring a few students to escape here. Now, the laboratory is the only place in the whole school that hasn't had its water and electricity cut off. He pulled the corner of his mouth again. His tone was indescribably sarcastic, with a bit of cynicism. You girls are quite good at finding a place. The dormitory has been without water and food for a day, and you're still here eating, drinking, and having fun, and even growing vegetables. Jiang Xiaoyu secretly sent a WeChat message. Listening to what Yang Yuan said, it doesn't sound like good words. Jiang Shuai finished eating the canned food in his hand and started walking around the room. The few zombies outside had stopped moving. I went to the door and took a look. It was empty outside, and there was nothing. I see that you've stocked up a lot of things, but judging from the current situation, it's still unknown how many days this situation outside will last. As a teacher, I have a reasonable suggestion. There are 9 of us in total. Later, let's jingdan the things and distribute them evenly. Each person can only eat and use their own share to avoid disputes when there is less and less food later. I was stunned. Jiang Xiaoyu said, distribute things? These are all our things. Why should we distribute them? Lin Jiao was more straightforward than her. What the hell are you talking about? And I had already started thinking about the possibility of growing castor beans, extracting ricin, and poisoning these people. Yang Yuan's face fell, and Jiang Shuai reacted more fiercely than him. How do you talk to Mr. Yang? Mr. Yang is right. Now that we're all in this room, the supplies should be reasonably distributed. The female league secretary also chimed in. Yes, the teacher and I can understand your feelings, but the teacher is also thinking about everyone. People can't be too selfish. At this time, we should help each other even more. Exactly. And you say these things are yours. Who knows if these things originally belonged to the laboratory? I might as well say that these were specifically left for us by Professor Jiang. The few students behind Yang Yuan were all class cadres close to him. They stuck together and condemned us from the moral high ground. But sorry, morality in the apocalypse was not as important as a mouthful of hot water. You say these things were left by Professor Jiang? But unfortunately, I have invoices and purchase records for all the things in the room, which can completely prove that these are all my personal items. You just ate a Hongtakin food and a pack of biscuits, right? Please transfer 26.5 yuan to me via WeChat. And Mr. Yang, do you want to scan the code to pay yourself or let Jiang Shuai and that female league secretary, who's talking without feeling the pain, help you pay? Those class cadres were choked. Anger flashed in their eyes. Yang Yuan spoke up. You students probably haven't joined the party yet, right? Now is the time for everyone to tide over the difficulties together. This can best test whether a person has good qualities. It seems that the moral character of you little girls is not very good. I almost laughed out loud. Are you okay? If you're okay, eat some liliumii plums. It's the end of the world. Whether we can all stay alive is still uncertain. And you're here talking to me about joining the party and making contributions? Lin Jiao didn't give him any face at all. Moral character? Mr. Yang, if you have the ability, go brainwash the zombies outside. Why didn't we see you protecting the students just now? Do you have moral character? Seeing that the soft approach didn't work, Yang Yuan was going to be tough. The school has stipulated that students are not allowed to come to the laboratory casually. Now with just one word from me, none of you can stay here. Are you sure you still want to talk to me in this tone? As Yang Yuan's voice got louder, several more zombies outside were attracted and started scratching the door. Fang Qin was so frightened that her face turned pale. She slumped to the ground shivering. The few class cadres stood behind Yang Yuan, glaring at us, but we weren't intimidated at all. Lin Jiao and I casually picked up the military shovels against the wall and pointed them at them. Jiang Xiaoyu wasn't polite either. She took out the folding knife from her pocket. In terms of numbers, they might have an advantage, but we had weapons in our hands. If we really fought, they didn't have a chance of winning. Yang Yuan got angry and stood up suddenly. Is this how you treat your teacher and classmates? Get out of the laboratory. As he spoke, he picked the easiest to bully person among us, Fang Qin, and dragged her towards the door. Fang Qin was so scared that she started crying. She trembled and begged for mercy. No, don't throw me out. I don't want to die. We quickly rushed up and clamped Yang Yuan's arms from both sides, forcing him to let go of Fang Qin. During the struggle, his sleeve was torn. I only took one look, and then kicked Yang Yuan's calf hard. After kicking him to his knees on the ground, I took the opportunity to quickly pull the others back and protect them behind me. Jiang Xiaoyu was stunned for a moment and gave me a thumbs up. Heroine, let me pay my respects. You really dared to kick. That kick looked painful even to me. I didn't speak. My eyes were fixed on a circular, quay-line wound on Yang Yuan's arm. The flesh and blood blurred outer edge still had marks like bite marks. Mr. Yang, you've been bitten. 7. This was not a question but a statement. I had seen such a wound on Lin Jiao in my previous life. Later, she mutated. I was sure that his arm had been bitten by a zombie, and was already infected. As soon as I finished speaking, the few class cadres behind Yang Yuan looked at Yang Yuan's arm along my gaze. They were so frightened that they took several steps back. Mr. Yang, you're your arm. They had just been about to rush up to help Yang Yuan deal with us. But now they were on high alert, wishing they could be 8 feet away from Yang Yuan. Yang Yuan looked down and forced a terribly ugly smile, covering his wound with one hand. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's not a bite. I accidentally fell. Yang Yuan struggled to get up, and staggered towards the few class cadres behind him. Mr. Yang, don't come over. You've been bitten. You're about to turn into a zombie soon. Yang Yuan was still struggling. How can you not believe the teacher? Don't listen to her lying. She's just making an excuse to drive us out. I took a deep breath. Yang Yuan, stop making excuses. I can see clearly that you've been bitten. I'll give you 2 choices. Either you go out by yourself now, or we'll tie you up with a climbing rope and throw you out of the window. It's just a bite. Rabies has an incubation period. Tong Xiamen, don't be nervous. I won't mutate. Jiang Xiaoyu stretched her neck and retorted. Liar. Do you think we've never seen a zombie movie? Lin Jiao brought a rope over. Why waste words with him? Just tie him up. Yang Yuan immediately turned to Jiang Shuai for help. Jiang Shuai, I'm your own uncle. Why don't you hurry up and stop them? Jiang Shuai's eyes dodged, and he didn't dare to look at him. We approached with the climbing rope. Yang Yuan fell to the ground, and started twitching continuously. Quick! Now Xiaoyu, go open the door. The rest of you come with me and drag Yang Yuan over. As soon as Xiaoyu opens the door, immediately push him out. Do you hear me? Fang Qin and the female league secretary were so scared that they didn't dare to move, and were of no use at all. On the contrary, among those class cadres, besides Jiang Shuai, there were 2 boys who seemed to be quite strong. Yang Yuan was still making all kinds of extremely strange movements, rolling his eyes, looking extremely terrifying. We tied him up with the climbing rope. He kept struggling like a fish out of water. Jiang Xiaoyu ran towards the door. When the zombies outside sensed the living people, they became excited and started ramming the door. I quickly ran to the cultivation rack, tore off 2 ultraviolet tubes, and pulled them to the door. The moment the switch was pressed, the purple light suddenly brightened. The zombie horde that had been squeezing their way into the room, just now took a few steps back immediately, giving us enough breathing room to open the door. Lin Jiao, I, and those class cadres dragged and pulled Yang Yuan to the door, being careful not to be hurt by him during the process. The moment the door was opened, several of us pushed Yang Yuan out of the door with all our might. Close the door quickly. As long as the door was closed, we would be safe. But things were far from as smooth as we had imagined. The moment Xiaoyu closed the door, a hand reached in through the crack in the door, and firmly held the door. I had to insert the military shovel into the handle again as a door bolt. Yang Yuan woke up. He used his hands to desperately grab the crack in the door. The ultraviolet tubes at the door had no deterrent effect on him, because he hadn't mutated completely yet. Open the door. Open the door for me quickly. He started ramming the door like a madman. The military shovel was already somewhat bent. With red eyes, He Pinming squeezed his body inward. I wasn't bitten. I won't turn into a zombie. Hurry up and open the door for me. Jiang Shuai was scared. Look, my uncle, his face. Veins bulged on Yang Yuan's face. Red bloodshot eyes swirled in his pupils, and his complexion gradually started to turn blue. The mutating Yang Yuan became increasingly manic. The zombies outside didn't bite him. They just roared and lingered behind him. Perhaps they didn't attack their own kind, and Yang Yuan, who had started to mutate, was regarded as one of them. The tubes. The ultraviolet tubes. Bring them here quickly. I turned around and shouted into the room. Fang Qin and the female league secretary finally came to their senses, and ran towards the hydroponic racks. The rest of us barely held the door at the entrance. Half of Yang Yuan's body was stuck in the crack of the door, and there was a cracking sound of bones breaking, yet he continued to squeeze inside, as if he felt no pain. The zombies outside became extremely excited, and rammed the door together. If this continued, we were all doomed. I gritted my teeth, and reached out to Lin Jiao. The military shovel. Quick! Lin Jiao didn't hesitate for a moment, and threw the shovel to me. The sharp shovel surface glinted with cold light. I clenched my teeth, raised the military shovel, and struck hard at Yang Yuan's outstretched arm at the shoulder. With a bang, the door was closed again. Yang Yuan's arm, accompanied by a putrid stench, fell inside the door. The blood was gray-green. Jiang Xiaoyu was staggered forward by the inertia. Her left foot stepped right on Yang Yuan's arm, and she screamed and backed away. A wave of nauseating dizziness swept over me. I had personally chopped off the counselor's arm. The cruelty of the apocalypse was vividly demonstrated at this moment. Yang Yuan, who had his arm cut off and was locked outside the door, was completely enraged. He roared and rammed the door of the laboratory again and again, with human language mixed in his cries. You all must die. Not saving me. I'll kill you all. He had become a complete monster. Before long, he would lose his rationality and thinking, and turn into a walking corpse like those zombies. They rammed the iron door one after another. With each ram, the dust on the wall fell in a flutter, as if the iron door would collapse under the weight at any moment. Fang Qin and the female league secretary finally removed the tubes from the hydroponic racks. Fang Qin pressed the main switch, and all the ultraviolet lights lit up simultaneously. The iron door had been knocked open a small crack, but Fang Qin and the female league secretary were about to bring the tubes over soon. As long as there were these ultraviolet lights, those zombies wouldn't dare to break in forcefully. But what I didn't notice was that Yang Yuan outside the door was staring fixedly at those ultraviolet tubes, with a fierce light in his eyes and a strange upward curve of his mouth. The next second, he lunged at those tubes and bit down hard. The glass of the tubes made a cracking sound in his mouth. Zitsy, zitsy. The tubes emitted several dazzling sparks, and we seemed to smell a mixture of putrid and burnt odors. Ah! The female league secretary let out a scream, and dropped the tube in her hand to the ground. More than 100 ultraviolet tubes went out simultaneously. The circuit of the cultivation rack short-circuited. A dozen zombies outside roared in unison. In the deathly quiet laboratory building, the sound was deafening. 8. Look out of the window. Fang Qin shouted behind us. The three of us subconsciously turned around. The dense horde of zombies outside heard the commotion, and gathered towards the direction where we were. The nearest wave had even reached the building entrance. The air was filled with a strong smell of blood and putrefaction. Our faces turned deathly pale, half from the stench and half from fear. What should we do? I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Who will save us? The female league secretary and another class cadre's emotions began to break down. There were a dozen zombies eyeing us outside the door, and downstairs there were hundreds of zombies with hungry eyes. We were trapped in the narrow laboratory with no way out. The footsteps of a large number of charging zombies began to be heard. The first batch of zombies had entered the building. This door couldn't stop hundreds of zombies no matter what. The laboratory was no longer safe, but we needed to keep the supplies. I glanced at those damned class committee members. With them around, we couldn't hold out with these supplies for even a third of the time. If we rushed out, there might still be a chance to get rid of them. I looked at the half-cut arm of Yang Yuan on the ground and said firmly, "We can't delay any longer. We have to rush out." Jiang Shui retorted, "There are so many zombies outside. How can we rush out? It's impossible." I picked up a military shovel and kept chopping at the half-cut arm on the ground. The putrid and fishy smell spread. Yang Yuan's half-cut forearm was mashed into meat paste by me. Several class cadres couldn't bear it and started vomiting. I asked, "Have you ever watched The Walking Dead?" Jiang Xiaoyu's face turned pale with fright. "Don't tell me you want to smear this stuff on yourself. There's no other way. That door won't hold for long." Then without hesitation, I directly smeared it on my body, face, and neck. While smearing, I endured the urge to vomit. Those class cadres who had said never cause trouble for the school and teachers smeared it vigorously, for fear that they would be bitten by zombies because they smeared too little. Even the class committee member who had sent the message, "Teachers on the front line have worked hard," thought the meat paste was not enough, and picked up our military shovel, and smashed it a few more times to make more meat paste for easy application. "The teacher has really worked hard this time. Take the military shovels and let's rush out." Jiang Shui blocked me. "What about us? We don't have weapons." Lin Jiao shouted, "It's none of our business. If you don't have any, figure it out yourself. If you talk nonsense again, you'll die." Those class cadres were reluctant, but didn't dare to say another word. Without Yang Yuan, they had lost their backbone and wilted immediately. The physical strength of zombies was not high. The military shovels in our hands were sharp enough. The fact that I easily chopped off Yang Yuan's arm just now had already proven this. Only by breaking through the encirclement of zombies and rushing out of the laboratory building could we have a hope of survival. The zombies downstairs were gathering more and more, although we were extremely scared in our hearts. If we didn't open the door now, we were doomed. 5 seconds to prepare. Adjust your breathing. When we rush out, everyone run towards the fire escape on the left. Don't go to the staircase directly in front. Do you understand? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I suddenly pulled out the military shovel used as a door bolt and held it tightly in my hand. Almost instantly, the door of the laboratory was knocked open by the zombies outside. Yang Yuan had completely turned into a zombie. Losing one arm, his body twisted wildly and lunged towards us. "Chop at their heads. The weakness of zombies in all games is the head," Jiang Xiaoyu shouted. After hearing this, I thrust the military shovel hard into Yang Yuan's forehead. Yang Yuan, with half of his head chopped off, twitched a few times on the ground like an earthworm, and then stopped moving. There was hope. Chop off their heads. Most of the zombies just roared in place and didn't pounce on us. It seemed that the smell on our bodies had successfully confused them. We slowly squeezed into the zombie horde, our nerves highly tense, moving out while looking around at the situation. During the process of moving, we also saw the security guard who had stopped us. Now he had become a zombie. At this moment, the no trouble-making class committee member ran in the wrong direction, towards the staircase full of zombies. The next second, his throat was directly bitten through by the zombies. The four of us couldn't care about him, because Fang Qin was also in danger. Yang Yuan, with half of his head chopped off, suddenly got up and pounced towards Fang Qin. She subconsciously thrust the military shovel in her hand into Yang Yuan's throat. Yang Yuan's head fell off and rolled on the ground for a few circles. I killed someone." Fang Qin was terrified, and her voice was tinged with crying. She stared wide-eyed at the military shovel in her hand, which was still stained with gray-green blood. "No, it's no longer human. You did a great job." Lin Jiao was frantically waving the shovel in her hand in front, like a female killing god in the apocalypse. 10 minutes later, we broke through the encirclement of zombies. In the end, there were the 4 of us left in the team, along with Jiang Shuai and the female league secretary. Standing at the side door on the first floor of the laboratory building, I used a telescope to look at the situation outside. Across the lawn in front of the laboratory building, and then walking more than 30 meters, was the library in Ifu building. The female league secretary was crying and whining. "I'm so scared. Let's go quickly. The zombies will catch up later." The sound would attract zombies. Lin Jiao was annoyed when she heard it. "Shut up. Otherwise, I'll use this military shovel to cut your mouth first." I was even more annoyed. The isolated island, for apocalypse survival, that we had painstakingly built, had been destroyed by these few useless people, just after 2 nights. I felt like killing them. Fang Qin's voice was trembling. "Where do we go now? The library or the teaching building?" "Neither the library nor the teaching building." I held the telescope and slightly deflected the angle to the right. "We're going to Little Moon." Little Moon was a chain supermarket on our campus, right on the right side of Ifu building. The supplies were all in the laboratory. It was uncertain how long it would take to come back when it was safe. So we still had to find a place with supplies first. In the supermarket, there were always enough water and food. We couldn't go to the library and chew books. Jiang Xiuyu said. "The back of Little Moon is always locked. We should only be able to enter from the main entrance." Fang Qin said. "If there are other people inside, will they not open the door for us?" Fang Qin was right. I looked at Jiang Shuai and the female league secretary who were still alive. If it weren't for these people, we would still be staying safely in the laboratory. Thinking of my own hesitation just now, I wanted to slap myself. After hearing this, Lin Jiao ran to the fire hydrant by the wall, opened the frosted glass door, took out a red fire axe, and carried it on her shoulder. "If others lock the door for you, can't you smash it?" I smiled. In the apocalypse, perhaps only those like Lin Jiao could survive. 9. The large army of zombies on the lawn was moving towards the main entrance. This was the best opportunity for us to slip out quietly from the side door. We carefully pushed open the side door and groped forward along the wall. There were broken corpses all over the lawn, and the smell of putrefaction was everywhere. When we stepped on it, it was very sticky. We held our breath and quietly passed through the lawn and reached the corner of Little Moon Supermarket. However, the situation in the supermarket was much worse than we had imagined. There are at least 30 or 40 of them, right? We could barely see the inside of the supermarket through a window on the wall. The shelves were scattered in a mess, and there were remnants of bones and flesh on the ground. The supermarket door was wide open, but these zombies inside didn't seem to want to come out. They were wandering around aimlessly. One of the zombies was actually our female dormitory supervisor. I couldn't be wrong about that curly-haired hairstyle. It was 3 p.m. It turned out that the dormitory supervisor was bitten not long after taking the supplies. Even as a zombie, she came to the supermarket. "You are the real apocalypse stockpiling king." I asked Fang Qin in lip language. "How much battery is left on your phone?" 20%. "Give it to me. Mine still has 90%. Sacrifice the one with less battery first." The situation had been urgent just now. Besides me, who never left my phone, and Fang Qin, whose parents hadn't replied, brought her phone with her. Jiang Xiaoyu gave a thumbs up. "Not bad, Gunyan. You must have watched Train to Busan, using the phone music to confuse those zombies." I smiled at her. Then I looked at Jiang Shuai. "I'll put the phone on the other side. When the zombies are attracted over, you run as fast as you can into the supermarket. Didn't you win the 1,000-meter championship?" Jiang Shuai was terrified. I can't. I don't dare. You go instead." Lin Jiao looked at him disdainfully. "What a waste." Then I had to go. Among the 4 in the dormitory, only I could finish the 800-meter run. I tucked Fang Qin's phone into my pocket and cautiously made my way to the flower bed about 20 meters outside the main entrance of Little Moon. The phone didn't have a password. After unlocking it, I set an alarm for 5 minutes later, turned the volume to the maximum, and then placed the phone in the flower bed. 5 minutes later, a loud alarm sound came from the flower bed. The originally silent Little Moon suddenly became Saodongqilai. One by one, the zombies were lured out of the door by the phone's ringtone, howling and running towards the flower bed at an increasing speed. The commotion in the supermarket gradually subsided. It was almost time. When we could no longer see any living creatures inside the supermarket through the window, we groped our way towards the main entrance of Little Moon. However, when we were still 10 meters away from the main entrance, a corpse bang fell from the coconut tree at the supermarket entrance. It landed right beside the female league secretary's feet. At this moment, the alarm clock stopped, and the female league secretary let out a scream. "Ah!" All of us instinctively looked over, and more than 30 zombies collectively turned their heads 180 degrees. They roared at us. 10. We desperately ran towards the supermarket. Behind us were zombies chasing frantically. Unexpectedly, there were more than a dozen black figures running towards us at a faster speed from the side. I was certain that they were all humans, not zombies. Finally, I and a tall boy who was the leader on the opposite side actually reached the supermarket entrance at the same time. The 6 of us had already arrived, and most of the students on the boys' side had also arrived, leaving only a few who were slow runners. Lin Jiao and I were now in a state of being able to kill anyone who stood in our way. We quickly tried to pull down the metal rolling shutter door. For those who didn't make it in time, It could only be said that they didn't have enough physical strength required for survival in the apocalypse. However, the boy suddenly reached out his hand to stop the two of us. He held the rolling shutter door and wouldn't let it close. Lin Jiao shouted, "You idiot, let go of your hand." I also directly waved my military shovel, telling him to let go. But there were more of them, and they had the upper hand, and we were subdued. I saw that there were still 3 people left among the boy's companions. They were running for their lives, but the horde of zombies was much closer to us than them, and was about to reach the entrance. Several zombies also noticed these 3 people and roared towards them. The boy still didn't let go and shouted outside, "Chi-Chi, hurry up." When the only girl among the 3 saw the zombies, she directly kicked the boy beside her. The boy fell to the ground. Seeing this, the zombies swarmed up and directly tore at the flesh of the boy who had fallen to the ground. The 4 of us were stunned. What a sinister woman. The zombies had already reached the supermarket entrance. Lin Jiao and the others, along with the few people on the boys' side who had weapons, were desperately resisting. The splashing blood plasma and brains dyed the supermarket entrance into a sea of the dead. Chi-Chi and the other person finally reached the supermarket entrance with pale faces. Under the cover of everyone, they were about to enter the supermarket gate. Jiang Shuai and I also quickly pulled the iron fence down. Just then the boy shouted, "Chi-Chi, be careful beside you." There was a zombie on Chi-Chi's right side that had its eyes on her, and opened its huge mouth and pounced on her. Ah! The next second, she casually pulled to the left, and a figure stumbled, and was violently pushed out of the door by her. Instantly the figure was devoured. After we saw clearly the figure that she had pushed out, we were almost enraged. Fang Qin. That stupid woman named Chi-Chi actually casually pulled Fang Qin over to block the attack of that zombie for her. Fang Qin was now outside the door. A large piece of flesh had been torn off her shoulder, and the blood splashed onto our faces. Fang Qin. Lin Jiao wanted to save her, and waved her hand to chop off the head of another zombie. But it was already too late. Fang Qin turned her head towards our direction, and moved her lips a few times. What she said was, "Live well." The next second, another zombie tore open her throat. Only her legs were twitching helplessly on the ground. The boy finally, with an absolute strength advantage, pulled the rolling shutter door down. The 3 of us sat on the ground, constantly looking in the direction of the rolling shutter door. We couldn't say a word for a long time. Behind us, Chi-Chi was nestled in the boy's arms, crying pitifully. "It's so scary, Wowo. It's not my fault. The door was open. She just didn't run." Lin Jiao wiped away her tears, stood up, directly pulled that woman up, and slapped her in the face. "Fuck you, you bitch. I'll kill you." Jiang Xiaoyu also cursed loudly. "I'll open the door now. You try running out." I also clenched the military shovel in my hand, ready to go over and kill that Ichav woman. Who cares about girls help girls? She's not even human. As a result, the boy and his several lackeys ran over, and held the 3 of us down. I think your companion didn't have good physical fitness either. Even if she didn't die, she would be a burden. My name is Li Jian. I'm in sports. These few people behind me are all my classmates. The survivors of our sports college have organized a security team, which can protect you students. Our team was sent here today to move supplies. If you 5 are willing, you can come with us to our stronghold later. The security team? My heart sank. Chi-Chi hid behind the boy, covering her face and saying pitifully, "Everyone is surviving in the apocalypse. It's all about fate. Can't you just accept your grief? Why do you have to force me? Will you only be satisfied if I die? If I die, she won't come back either." Lin Jiao was enraged by these words, and was writhing like crazy, wanting to kill this Icha bitch. I looked at her. "Chi-Chi, right? I'll make you 100 times worse off than Fang Qin." Unlike us, Jiang Shuai and the female league secretary seemed to have found someone to rely on. "My name is Jiang Shuai, the monitor of our class. It's so great to meet you all. My name is Zhang Yuan, the league secretary of Class 1 of Engineering Management. I also want to go with you. Can you protect me?" A boy with a crew cut beside her looked at her twice. "Sure, no problem. We will definitely be able to protect you well." Li Jian came over to persuade us again. "You 3 are all girls. Without us, you won't be able to hold on for long. It's better for your roommate to die than for yourself to die, right?" Jiang Xiaoyu spat on Li Jian's face. "You don't deserve it." Li Jian wiped the saliva off his face. "You're really ungrateful. Let's go. We'll move the remaining supplies in the supermarket back, and let these 3 women starve and freeze to death here." Jiang Shuai and Zhang Yuan were anxious. They trotted a few steps and followed behind Li Jian, starting to flatter him. As expected, a dog is a dog wherever it is and can't change its nature. Ignoring the 3 of us, the 2 of them had already followed those people to gather the few remaining things on the shelves. I had a very deep impression of the security team. Since Jiang Shuai and Zhang Yuan chose to go with them, I wouldn't remind them of anything. 2 tall and strong boys cast several malicious glances in our direction, and licked their lips. I knew exactly what that look meant. At this moment, a relatively fit girl among them looked at us with an ambiguous expression. I noticed that there were many bruises and bloodstains of unclear origin on her neck. Taking advantage of everyone being busy searching for supplies, she walked beside me and whispered 2 words. "Run now." 11. There was a reason why I had a deep impression of the security team. They were indeed formed by the surviving boys from the sports college, but not to protect students. At first, they were seizing supplies and resisting zombies. But after a day, They thought they had become the gods of the apocalypse and started killing people at will, raping girls and even boys. In my previous life, because Jiang Xiaoyu was beautiful, she was targeted by these boys from the security team. Later, when the danger had passed, these beasts humiliated her in front of us. So, I knew exactly where the bruises on that girl's body came from. This time, I would never let history repeat itself. Everyone in the supermarket was busy searching for supplies. The zombies outside couldn't hear the commotion and gradually dispersed, leaving only a few still wandering around. I took a few steps back. There were several small alarm clocks crooked on the shelf beside me. I casually took two, and tucked them into my arms. Then I grabbed Lin Jiao and Jiang Xiaoyu's hands, and led them to the restroom inside the supermarket. There was a ventilation window in the restroom, and the three of us could just find an opportunity to climb out from there. I made a gesture to signal them to be quiet, and told them not to make a sound. The ventilation window in the toilet wasn't locked, and could be easily pushed open. But the three of us weren't tall enough, so I planned to form a human pyramid. I whispered, "The security team is not a good bunch. We have no chance of winning in a conflict. They took the supplies and won't give them to us. The three of us might as well find another safe place." Just as I was speaking, suddenly we heard some scattered footsteps coming towards the toilet. I quickly pulled the two of them, and hid in the last cubicle of the toilet. The footsteps were getting closer, and it seemed that someone was being covered by the mouth, and making a woo-woo sound. "Come on, stop struggling. It's not like we haven't done this before. What are you pretending to be noble for?" "That's right. Anyway, the zombies won't disperse for a while. It's just right to have some fun with us two brothers here. Brother promises to make you feel great." There were some struggling and whimpering sounds outside the toilet cubicle, as well as the sound of clothes being torn. The three of us looked at each other, and knew exactly what that meant. The girls' resisting whimpering sound gradually weakened, while the two boys were getting more and more excited in their conversation. "Did you see those three girls? One of them is really good looking, with a slender waist and long legs. It must be great to have fun with her. The one just now was also good. What was her name, Yuan? Just by her name she seems slutty, and she's a class cadre too. When we take her back and starve her for 2 days, for the sake of food and water, she'll have to beg us. Then we can have as much fun as we want with her." There were a few sounds of zippers being undone outside. The girls seemed to start struggling violently again, and the boys were cursing. "Don't fucking move randomly. If you dare to move again, I'll throw you out to feed the zombies. It's the end of the world now, do you understand? If we don't rely on us survivors to reproduce, humanity will go extinct. You really have no sense of the overall situation." "Haha, you're right. Isn't it up to us? Close the door so that those outside won't hear. Otherwise they'll come in and share the fun. We won't have enough for the two of us to enjoy." The three of us remained still, but we held our military shovels tightly. Jiang Xiaoyu had the worst expression. I had once told her about her fate in the previous life. At this moment, her hatred was the strongest. Lin Jiao was the kind of person who couldn't tolerate any injustice. At this moment, she was also gritting her teeth, ready to rush out at any moment. With a soft sound, the toilet door was closed by the boys outside. The three of us looked at each other in the toilet cubicle, and then at the military shovels in our hands. The next second, we carried our military shovels, and rushed out of the cubicle directly. The few boys didn't have time to turn around, and were directly knocked out by us. They lay on the ground with their eyes wide open and stopped moving. This time, we really killed someone. Jiang Xiaoyu took Lin Jiao's fire axe, squatted down, and struck each of the boys' necks once. The two men died with their eyes open, unable to rest in peace. There were tears welling up in the girl's eyes. I asked her, "Do you want to come with us?" The girl shook her head. "I'm not leaving. My boyfriend is still outside collecting supplies." The three of us were greatly surprised. "Your boyfriend is outside? Then why didn't you ask him for help?" A trace of despair welled up in the girl's eyes. "He gave me to those people. Otherwise, why would those people agree to protect him with so much effort? Leave quickly. Don't worry about me. Run quickly. Otherwise, when Li Jian and the others find out that there are people missing from the team, none of you will be able to leave." If it were a normal day without any trouble, we would definitely try to wake her up. But in the apocalypse, everyone has to be responsible for their own choices. We didn't try to persuade her anymore. But after thinking for a while, I took out a folding knife from mine and gave it to her. Then I whispered a few words in her ear. At first, she hesitated for a few seconds. But then she turned to look at the two men lying on the ground, and nodded with gritted teeth. I guessed that she would agree. We climbed up the window, and the girl inside even helped to push us. Through the window, I took one last look at the girl, and mouthed the word "be careful" to her. I saw her tuck the folding knife into her, and wave her hand towards me. It was like a farewell. 12. We made our way along the direction of the teaching building and the library, feeling our way along the base of the wall. Because we had smeared zombie body fluid on ourselves, we managed to avoid several solitary wandering zombies, and reached the teaching building where the broadcasting station was located. The school broadcasting room, the stronghold of the security team. I heard this when they were talking in Little Moon. I would never let go of Feng Qin's revenge so easily. The three of us hid in the cabinet of the room next to the broadcasting room, waiting for their return. Before long, there was a commotion in the broadcasting room. "Li Jian, are you reliable or not, you son of a bitch? Where are the supplies? Didn't you say that the dormitory supervisor hid the supplies on the second floor with them?" "Brother Zhang, I didn't lie to you. My girlfriend Song Chi heard that bitch talking to her boyfriend with her own ears. The two of them were even planning how to run here. The cursing male voice came from the radio, accompanied by the crisp sound of a slap. If you can't ask it out, then beat the hell out of them for me. If she doesn't say, then beat that pretty boy to death. Let's see how long these two can keep their mouths shut. After a while, there came a sound of punching and kicking and pleading for mercy. Stop hitting me. I was wrong. I really don't know where the supplies are. It was all Yang Jia who said it. You go and ask her. Don't hit me anymore. Please. It turned out that the girl's name was Yang Jia. Her boyfriend continued to betray her. Brother Zhang, this afternoon, that bitch Yang Jia secretly sent a message to the new Zhang Yuan, telling her to run away quickly. It was me who stopped her. I'm loyal to you. I've never thought of running away. It was all that bitch who instigated me. Next, there came Yang Jia's desperate cries, and the sound of clothes being torn. I'll fuck you to death. At this moment I took out my phone, adjusted it to silent mode, and then set an alarm for 3 minutes later. I returned to the main interface, and turned the volume to the maximum. Just as I was slowly walking out of the cabinet, ready to stuff the phone into the broadcasting room, the voice of that Brother Zhang came from the next room. Ah, my eyes. Brother Zhang, how are you? Shit, this woman secretly brought a knife. Li Jian, kill her quickly. Kill her for me now. As a result, the radio suddenly went Zazila. Let's die together. Yang Jia's resolute voice resounded throughout the entire campus, through the loud broadcasting horn. Damn it, what's that noise outside? Damn, why are there so many zombies? It's over. All the zombies around have been attracted here. What are you afraid of? There's still the window blocking them. Just wait until they disperse on their own, and then... Before the words were finished, there was a crack, and the glass shattered. I could even imagine the scene of countless zombies swarming into the broadcasting room. Although we were relatively safe, because of the smell of zombies on us, in the cabinet, we still held our breath, and gripped the military shovels tightly. Ah! This scream seemed to come from Song Chi. Help me, Li Jian, save me. Don't run away. Come and save me quickly. Help me, save me. I know I was wrong. No, don't eat me. It hurts so much, ah. In the campus, the screams of Song Chi, and the men of the security team resounded through the sky. Accompanied by the sound of bones and flesh being chewed, the painful screams were amplified by the radio, making people feel creepy, yet there was also a hint of satisfaction. After a few minutes, only the roars of the zombie horde remained, and the sound gradually faded away, and then returned to silence. Lin Jiao said, Fang Qin, we avenged you. Jiang Xiaoyu said, well done. They deserve to die anyway. 5 minutes later, the horn was completely silent. Finally, I heard Yang Jia softly say in the radio, thank you. Fortunately, she really survived. According to the method I taught her, she escaped a disaster. 13. Without the harassment of zombies, we still didn't fall asleep. We just closed our eyes and squinted for a while near dawn, barely getting enough rest to regain our spirits. As soon as it dawned, the vision became clear, and the temperature began to warm up. Having not eaten for 2 days, we had to gather our strength to search for food and water in the building. We listened carefully to the movement outside the door for a while. There was no sound of any zombies lurking, nor the footsteps of living people. We pushed open the door and entered the corridor. This floor was where the classrooms for the College of Resources and Environment were located. Starting from the first classroom on the left, the doors were all locked. Except for the room we just came out of, we found nothing. We didn't dare to force the locks open, for fear of making noise and attracting the zombies. We walked to the staircase and climbed up the stairs. The second floor was obviously not classrooms. The air was very humid, giving people the feeling as if they had entered some rainforest. There was a strong smell of plants and soil everywhere. What are these things on the ground? Moss. As soon as Jiang Xiaoyu finished speaking, we looked down at the ground. A thin layer of moss-like substance stuck to the soles of our shoes, making it a bit slippery. This place was more mysterious than any other place. How could moss grow on the floor tiles? Moreover, it was so cold a few days ago. Not to mention plants, nothing could survive. Why don't we leave? I always feel that something is not right here. Jiang Xiaoyu was a bit scared. I also agreed with the two of them. Just as I was about to pull the two of them, and turn around to walk towards the staircase, a faint human voice suddenly came from behind us. Save me. It's so cold. Please save me. This voice sounded somewhat familiar. Lin Jiao made a surprised lip gesture towards me. I suddenly remembered. Wasn't this the voice that Lin Jiao and I heard in the public restroom of the laboratory building on the first day of the apocalypse? The voice came from the room behind us and became clearer and clearer, as if the person speaking was getting closer and closer to us. I instinctively looked towards the glass window of the back door of the room. There were some rustling movements over there, which sounded like an animal crawling slowly on the ground. Let's go quickly. Just as the words were spoken, there was a loud slap. Something slapped against the glass of the back door of the room. Was I not seeing things? What was that thing? It looked like it was green. Save me. It hurt so much. I know I was wrong, ah. It's so cold, so cold. The human voices suddenly became chaotic, as if there were people talking from all directions. I turned my head, and several intertwined emerald green vines suddenly stretched out from the doors of the two classrooms in front. The tips of the vines even had a corpse impaled on them. As they crawled, the corpse trembled slowly. No, with its grayish-white skin, that wasn't a corpse. It was a zombie. The scene in front of us was beyond terrifying to describe. I grabbed the wrists of Lin Jiao and Jiang Xiaoyu and ran downstairs. The vines behind us chased closely. The leaves trembled, and the chaotic human voices followed closely behind us. What the hell is this thing? Is it an alien creature? Go to the first floor. Lock the fire door. We ran wildly to the first floor, turned around, and locked the fire door with a bang. The moment the door closed, the vines had already climbed to the door along the stairs. I seemed to have caught Fang Qin's voice among those chaotic human voices. She said live well. 14. We returned to the first classroom in a state of shock. No matter how powerful the vines were, they couldn't open the door. Squatting in the corner, the three of us gasped for breath. You two heard it too, right? Lin Jiao and I nodded with ugly expressions. That was indeed Fang Qin's voice, but we didn't have this sentence in our memory. So, this should be the last sentence she said to us before she died. The sentence we didn't hear clearly was for us to live well for her. So those plants have the ability to imitate human speech, and can mimic the last words of a person before they die. I nodded. Perhaps it's an evolution. Under the environment of low temperature and lack of water, they have no nutrients. So they use this way to deceive their prey, and induce the prey to approach. Did you see that zombie? This is probably the reason why there are no zombies in this building. In addition to humans, zombies will also be attracted by the human voices emitted by those plants, and become their fertilizer. The branches and leaves of the vines penetrate through living organisms, moving freely inside their bodies, using flesh and blood as nutrients to nourish themselves and meet their growth needs. In the apocalypse, no creature can stand at the top of the food chain. All things restrain and are restrained by each other. Those vines must have their own weaknesses, but we just haven't found them yet. What should we do now? I don't dare to open that staircase door anymore. I looked out of the window. Snowflakes were starting to fall again in the sky. Let's go back. We're going back to the laboratory. After 2 days and 1 night, the zombies in the laboratory building had probably dispersed almost completely. After figuring out the movement rules of these zombies, we seemed to gradually adapt to the life in the apocalypse. As long as we didn't make a sound and waited for the zombies to lose their target in a closed space, it didn't seem that difficult to stay alive. The three of us successfully avoided the zombies in the teaching building and the library, crossed the lawn, and returned to the original place. The zombies had indeed dispersed almost completely, and the few remaining ones were easily dealt with by us. The supplies in the laboratory were all intact. Even the stove was still heating continuously. Lin Jiao turned around and locked the door. We looked out of the window. The snow was falling heavily again. We came back in time. If the temperature dropped to -50 degrees again, we wouldn't be able to survive the night outside. Fang Qin's white Huawei phone was still placed on the windowsill. It was out of power. Lin Jiao quietly plugged in the phone to charge it. The supplies were very complete. We were thirsty and hungry. We drank a lot of water, and even luxuriously boiled a pot of hot water to make 2 bowls of braised beef noodles and soup. We drank even the soup clean. We lit the stove in the laboratory, and ate the supplies piled up like a small mountain. But we rarely communicated. One reason was that we were afraid of attracting zombies. The other reason was that we would think of Fang Qin when we saw her things from time to time, and that sentence live well. So we were all still trying our best to live. On the 20th day of the apocalypse, there were more than half fewer zombies outside than before. I guess that it might be related to those evolved plants on campus. On the 35th day of the apocalypse, several vines climbed up the window and talked to us. We didn't open the window. On the 52nd day of the apocalypse, the engine sound of a drone came from outside. It seemed that something was spraying an agent in the air. On the 61st day of the apocalypse, when I looked out of the window with the telescope, the ground was a desolate yellow, and I never heard Fang Qin's voice again. On the 70th day of the apocalypse, there was a touch of green in the incubator. Without the supply of ultraviolet lights and the circulation of nutrient solution, there were still vegetable seedlings that survived tenaciously and grew new emerald green leaves. On the 75th day of the apocalypse, the campus horn rang again. There was a broadcasting horn hanging on the wall in the laboratory, and we could hear it clearly without opening the window. Dear surviving teachers and students, the zombies and mutated plants outside have been cleared by us. Later, we will send a helicopter to land on the playground. Please hurry up and follow our personnel to the safe isolation area. There were still huge snowflakes falling outside the window, but we had red eyes instead. There was no moment that made us feel warmer and more at ease than now. We finally waited for the rescue. We simply packed our personal belongings, wrapped ourselves tightly in down jackets and cold-proof suits. The three of us carried backpacks and went to the playground. There was really a helicopter parked there, and there were also several armed personnel with guns beside it. At this time, we realized that in addition to us, there were many other survivors in the school, including teachers and students. I even saw a few familiar faces from the same major. The three of us queued up behind the line of survivors and boarded the plane under the orderly organization of the armed personnel. Before getting on the plane, I asked the armed guy next to me out of curiosity, "Which department are you from? Are you from the People's Liberation Army?" The guy smiled at me. The smile on his face was extremely warm, like a ray of dawn in the apocalypse. While urging me to get on the plane, he took the initiative to take the backpack off my body. I heard him say, "We are from the Doomsday Security Team."